everybody, how are you doing? Yeah, you all good? Lovely to see you all, and thanks for joining us. Welcome to What's the Point Live. We're going to get started straight away and kind of explain why we're all sitting down, and I'm going to talk to you from this luxurious seating position today, rather than standing up and roving around. We're going to talk about marketing as not just a cost center, but really about setting the growth strategy for recruitment agencies. Today, we are in a marketplace, as I'm sure you're all aware, it's exceptionally fluctuating between good, bad, and worse. And there's a lot of challenges along the way. Each of us have led marketing in recruitment agencies from Robert Half to Reed, and I've been at Randstad, and a couple more in between. I think all of us have got a number of T-shirts that we can say have got the logos on. But we wanted to basically bring to you the answers to questions you might have, but also to enable you to start asking the questions that will put marketing in a much more strategic position within your agency, but also as well to enable growth from the seat in which marketing is sat, but also from a business leader perspective as well. Before we carry on with the conversation, let me just introduce ourselves. I'm Claire Bush. I'm a fractional CMO, and I work as a go-to-market strategist and advisor to recruitment and HR tech businesses.
I'm Christy Perrott. I'm 20 plus years in the industry. I run a marketing agency called Thrive Recruitment Marketing. It does what it says on the tin. Founded that 7 years ago, and I have a team of specialists from creative and copy all the way through to digital, SEO, marketing automation, and particularly marketing transformation, which is such a key part of what we're talking about today.
I'm Janine Owen. I founded JO & Co. Again, a sort of marketing strategy business. I focus on business leaders and mentoring marketers to really make a difference and take that seat and have those conversations.
Fantastic. So now you know who we are.
And collectively,
yeah.
Well, collectively, we have a podcast called What's the Point? And that's ultimately what we're trying to find out today. What's the point? What's the point of all the marketing hype you hear? What's the point of doing marketing? What is doing marketing? And how do we make sure that it's actually moving the dial, that we're actually getting something out of it?
So What's the Point was founded about to really drive those growth strategies. And as I said at the intro, we're looking to answer some questions. And one of the biggest questions that you are all probably facing right now is, how do you succeed in today's economy? It's obviously something that we're not really used to. The fluctuations happen day to day. But at the minute, what we're looking at is a real sort of position where budgets are being cut, marketers being asked to do much, much more with less, and the less is getting less. So how do you succeed in today's economy? What are the quick wins? What are the long-term plans that you should be thinking about? And I'm going to throw it open to both of you, and we will interject as we go.
I'll go first. So for me, it's about focus rather than frenzy. And the agencies that are doing well, I think, are doing the right things really well, but they're not attempting to do everything with their marketing. Yeah. And it's about, as a marketer, it's about getting closer to revenue and what really moves the needle. So if that might be activating your database, it might be engaging better with existing clients, whatever it is and whatever you know, for me, it's about that protecting your focus in order to be able to save your sanity. If you're trying to do everything, you are going to burn out.
Yeah. I think it comes from a place of understanding what you want to achieve from it and then working backwards.
Agreed.
So, from a marketer's lens, that's working with the leadership to understand what the leadership wants to achieve. That marketer absolutely needs to, if not be in the meeting and at that table at the discussion, at least be pended down the notes from it to say, what are our growth goals? We're in October right now. Most of the businesses we're working with are doing their 2026 planning. So that means business planning on what are their growth goals over the 12 months of 2026. And then as a marketer, how is that going to enable it? And that's much more than just, what are we going to post on LinkedIn? What are we going to do on TikTok? It's deliberate. It's intentional. It's understanding if we're going to go after this geography or this segment of the market, or we plan to grow by 20 or 200%, what's the strategy, but what's the tactics that follow? And critically, what's the measurement to know that we're actually working towards those goals?
Yeah.
You mentioned strategy then. So for me, in agency environment, strategy really is about being dialed into that overarching agency strategy and where the business is going, what's happening in the next quarter, what's happening towards the end of the half year mark, where's the next 12 months going to take you? Knowing and understanding your marketplace is much more than knowing that you do X specialism in Y, and Y vertical, right? So how can we enable that tactical plan to really align with the business strategy?
Well, I think it's understanding what is the business strategy. If your strategy is we're going to go to the US and expand to the US, well, you're going to find you're going to be spinning a lot of wheels and you're not going to see return. And I'm not saying that US isn't a great market, but maybe pick one state, maybe pick one vertical. I'll talk to businesses that say, well, we do accounting and finance recruitment. Excellent. Well, we do it worldwide. Okay, don't you have 6 people on your team? 6 people on a team, you're not going to gain that traction. You hear it a lot. Own your vertical and own whether it's an industry vertical or specialism vertical, but geography as well. If you're going to the US and that is your play, or the Middle East, or Germany is another big one, pick a state. Understand exactly what you need to permeate that. And then from a marketer's lens is, from the leadership's lens is, how can marketing enable my salespeople to do better there? But then there's a second piece to it, isn't there? There's that how is marketing creating a brand, a machine, an inbound mechanism that doesn't solely rely on the consultant or the founder to be successful?
I think that really underpins the sort of what we call the ICP, so the ideal client profile. And we do it a lot in sales enablement from a sort of inbound, outbound kind of build a machine. So understanding not just the geography that you want to go into, the vertical and the sector specialisms, or even the drivers, but you really need to understand what are the challenges in that marketplace for the people that you're talking to. So rather job title, is it the head of HR? Is it hiring managers? What are their day-to-day challenges? And by not having that person on their team that you're going to recruit for, what does that really look like for them? If they did have that person, what does that success look for? How quickly could they increase performance? How quickly could they drive growth in their own organization? So for me, it's all about understanding exactly what those levers are. As a marketeer, being able to pull all of that back, what insight and information do I need to have to hand that I can then gift consultants, or can consultants gift me, so that I can then replay that and use that as part of the foundational marketing to increase the brand awareness, to increase the engagement factor out at that top of the funnel content.
And I think that's where sales engagement can work, right? When it's reciprocal, when your marketing is supporting sales with that piece, and sales are supporting marketing with what's landing, what messaging is working, what are the blockers in the sales process, what is that looking like in that country, in that vertical, in that state? Because marketing needs that information to continue to grow and continue to make that as specialist and as niche as it can be. And then I think that's only one part of the challenge, right? As you said, Christy, there's so much more and so many other levers that then marketing can start to really drive for you above and beyond the sales and engagement piece, because I think too many marketers are stuck in that space as basically being treated as a service desk.
And as sales enablement, we're not necessarily talking about driving leads, which would be possibly, I think, a better use of time, like actual leads that consultants can be working, nurturing, moving it from a marketing qualified lead to a sales qualified lead. What you're talking about is pitch decks.
Yeah.
And the
stuff that people get stuck on. Yeah.
Yeah. Which, that basic marketing, let's go back to a funnel. If your marketer's only working at that bottom of the funnel to enable the close, which absolutely they need stuff to close it. But set up templates, set up something that's repeatable. Let your marketer be filling the top of the coffer and nurturing through. Enable your salespeople to be much more efficient, because they're not just cold calling, they're actually nurturing and doing, getting back to the people business.
Yeah.
Because guess what? Tech can be doing all that other stuff. Tech and marketing enabled tech, or tech enabled marketing, can do that top of funnel stuff. Let your consultants focus on what they do best and the relationships and really bringing the consultant and or the service offering. That's the other piece.
Yeah.
I've never seen recruitment having so many it's beautiful. This variety of beyond contingent, statement of work, embedded, consultancy, employer branding, all this is coming in to give your consultants to be the spotlight now and really be consultative.
Let's talk about tech stack for a bit then. Obviously, agencies can be of all shapes and sizes. A lot of the time, agencies that I speak to, they're in that sort of what I would call small category, sub 10 employees. And really, if you've got a marketeer or you've got marketing support there, you need to be as smart as possible in terms of being able to enable all of that. And a lot of the time, the recruiters are doing what I would call 50% of the marketing job, right? So how do we kind of support the growth of an agency to break through that 10 plus employee barrier? What's the marketing tech stack? How does it work in relation to supporting an agency growth?
I think it comes back to a similar point that I made earlier. You can't have it all, okay? So as much integration as you can, things that talk to each other, so you're not creating more manual work in connecting the dots. So concentrate on the tech that's going to make a difference and how does that communicate with your CRM and the other tech you've got in your business. Because if you're just constantly adding on the next shiny thing, okay, it might work, but you're then got a process to get buy-in, to get adoption across your business and to measure the results. For me, tech and the usage of tech needs to be measured for return in the same way that marketing does.
Well, again, it's knowing where you want to go and then working backwards. So what happens, not to take away from the event we're at, for there's lots of tech that you're going to learn about, but if you're just putting in shiny tech, not knowing what you want to get out of it, one, they're going to start competing with each other. Two, the consultants aren't going to know which direction to turn to because it maybe the workflows haven't been worked out, and I think that piece is all about having the not only the vision, but working out the plan and actually embedding it. And that might mean some external help,
It's
some
making
external
it part of the
technical
day,
knowledge.
isn't it? Like if you don't make it part of a recruiter's day, you're going to hide into nothing.
Yeah, there's no point.
Absolutely. I think for me,
That's the point.
that's the point for sure. We will say that a lot, by the way. That's just kind of how we roll. The other thing that I was thinking about as well in terms of the sort of heart of, the matter, we have all been knee-deep, neck-deep in CRM structures and working with consultants to try and enable that engagement. What we're going to do is now ask you guys what questions you might have for us to answer here on stage. Stephen.
Hi.
There's a microphone now. If every recruiter is a marketeer, how do you make sure that they're on message with the strategy and not going rogue?
It's a great question. So Stephen asked, for those that didn't hear, if every recruiter is a marketeer, how do you enable them to stay on brand and not go rogue?
Okay, I think there's an argument around every recruiter being a marketeer. So, but putting that to one side for a minute, I talk a lot about an onion. Okay, so your recruiters are on the outside of that onion. Okay, so they're the ones communicating to clients and candidates day in, day out. But if the heart of the onion, your vision, your purpose, your messaging isn't correct, it'll fall apart. So, and then outside the heart of the onion, you've got the layers of location, niche, and then you've got your consultants on the edge of that. So you've got to hold all of that together and be able to pull all of that key messaging through, but also enable people to be personal with it, right? Because people buy from people. We know that, and it's an adage for a reason. So bringing that message through to something personalized, but still with your tone, with your values embedded, etc., is really important.
Yeah, maybe I'll pick up on every recruiter is a marketer argument. I think we have to define that, yes, everybody could have a personal brand. Most recruitment leaders will want their team to have a personal brand and to be leveraging LinkedIn. I don't think we can say it's the same thing as a strategic marketing program. To Janine's point of actually having a foundation, having the core of that onion of what is the company brand, what is the message. like it or not, that recruiter can up and leave you tomorrow. And I'm not saying don't do it because of it. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm not saying don't do the personal branding at the expense of the centralized branding. Because especially if any businesses are looking to scale and sell at some point, or at least take some kind of investment, you can't rely on the founder, because the founder, you want to exit. So their personal brand alone isn't enough, or shouldn't be your only play. But same thing with recruiters, shouldn't be the only play. So I think it's giving the recruiters the tools and the enablement, the layers of the onion, as you say, but just don't do it at the expense of what is actually the asset you're growing, and where does marketing fit into that asset.
I'd also add that having a really well documented story about your business, whether that is a brand book, whether that's your employer handbook, however you can, to really denote exactly what your story is, what your value proposition is.
I think in documenting is also, that kind of leads us onto brand a little bit, doesn't it? I really think brand is having its heyday right now, which is a little bit counterintuitive, because when it's a tougher economy, normally we'd lean towards sales enablement, lead generation, getting job orders in, right? It is what we lean to. But we're in this like perfect storm right now that we have technology. We have technology of how it enables our teams and how we go to market with that. We have technology of how it affects our candidates, how it affects our end clients. So that's swimming around. At the same time, what's swimming around is the embedded, the statement of work, all, this completely, recruitment is changing for the better, I think. So we're in this perfect moment that brand, if you haven't articulated that and actually say why you're different than the other 30,000 recruitment agencies in the UK who all seem to trade on, well, it's our people that make us different. Well, prove it. What are the stats? What actually enable it? What do you have to prove that? Are you more successful? Do you have a better fill rate? Where are your stats? How quickly to market? We enabled this executive hire in 34 days when the average was 90 days. Find out those like really pain point, integral, like what's the point? What's the point of our brand and our service offering? And let your consultants lean into that. So suddenly they're differentiating as your business instead of differentiating just as themselves.
And if you're a lonely marketer, or you're the only marketer, you're a business leader with just one marketer, Christy, what's the balance between the quick wins and the sales enablement and that longer term brand and strategy play?
Well, for me, it goes back to having that plan. So you're going to be in different, if you're startup, scale up, and then established. And as soon as you're established, you're in a place that you might have 100,000 contacts in your database. That's a very, very different play than if you're starting up and you literally starting from scratch. LinkedIn is your database. So I think it's being very deliberate on what you're going after. Don't go after everything. Yes, TikTok might be, cool and trendy, but if you're doing executive search, TikTok should not be your first play. You need to go where your customer is, or candidate client, go where your customer is, lean in deep to one versus spreading yourself thin.
So then also as well, thinking about the channels to market that you're really using. So again, for us in the room, talking to recruiters, obviously LinkedIn is the perfect place because you're all on it all of the time. But actually, if you think about your vertical, you think about your niche, really is LinkedIn the main place for your contacts to be? And 9 times out of 10 they're not. You're going to be in professional markets where there are different communities, there's different readership platforms that you could go on to. So again, really
behaviors.
And behaviors for sure. There's a number of different shows that are happening through the NEC today, but at the same time there's always going to be events that are specific to the marketplace in which you're working in. So start there. Don't start necessarily on LinkedIn, even though obviously we have it.
And what we mean by behaviors is, recruitment, we are on LinkedIn all day long.
Yeah.
Is your client or your target candidate, are they all day long? And then, recognizing the algorithms do funny things, but the algorithms will mean they're not being served up everything. So if that is your only play, not saying don't do it, they absolutely could be on there, but think about where else they might be as well.
Absolutely.
Any other questions from the audience? Oh, you lot are quiet.
Yeah, very.
What about you, Janine? What's the burning question that you'd like to kind of pose?
I think in agency, albeit I agree, Christy, it's changing, but I still think there's a concept that marketing is brochures and pretty things. How can we help leaders rethink that? How can we change that perception?
I could jump in there. Immediately think about the last placement that you made. Think about the story that your client and that candidate have, and how can you bring that to bear. That's much more powerful than another pitch deck. That's much more powerful than redoing your website all over again because you don't like the colours. It's really, really much more important that you capture the sentiment of that challenge that you solved, the way in which the person really felt that journey through their hiring process because you enabled that. It's much more important to be able to use the words of your clients and your candidates in your your next conversation. Because there's that kind of like, look, this is what we did, we've proved it, and that's where the trust is as well. Trust is gained really quickly when you're leveraging your client stories and your candidate stories, for sure.
And then think how you promote those stories. So I the rule of 5, that testimonial or that case study should sit on your website. It should sit in that creds document. It should maybe have an email campaign that there's a quote in there that's on it at least once or twice on LinkedIn. If you think that you need to always have new content, you don't. Reuse it, maybe take different parts of the quote, maybe frame it different ways, but sweat your assets. If you actually, people get involved doing a lot of stuff. There's this kind of attitude that, 90% is content creation and 10% is promotion. Try turning that on its head.
Yeah.
It has to be good content, but how are you going to get it into the hands or the eyeballs to people?
Also capturing it on video or audio. Like, how brilliant would it be if you're recording your sales conversations for training purposes, but actually you're on a client call and they say, well, we love working with you guys. You do everything that we need you to do and some. And actually that could come from a client or a candidate saying just how they feel that they've embedded within the business. Stephen.
Other correction, sorry. The prisoners are all hot recruiters and always looking for new things that they can charge for. How do you feel about the marketing team working on a recruiter's client's employer brand and repositioning the brand of the client?
So that question was around how can agencies leverage working on their clients' employer brands to bring them through, to help them to really find the right person, I suppose, more so, but then also as well to add that as an additional service line in terms of the chargeable kind of capabilities that you have.
We had when I was at Hayes, we had a whole team doing that and selling attraction solutions effectively, is what it was called back then. And then in my most recent role in-house, that was pretty much my full-time job for 5 years, was going out, talking to clients about their brand, talking to, if they were moving into a new area, how were we going to attract the tax candidates in that specific location? How would we leverage off their brand, but also off ours as a recruitment partner? And how can we pull all of that together? So I think there are tons of services within that, employer brand space that recruitment businesses could and should be offering. I don't think it necessarily needs to be sell them their employer brand, because often that's treading on toes and it might feel like it's value, but it might not get very far. You don't get so much take up on it. But actually clear services in terms of, what are they using the agency for and how can marketing help leverage that? I think that's certainly services they can sell.
I think the commercialization of that is really key as well. So if you actually go to employer branding agencies, many of them are charging 6 figures for a full end-to-end employer brand. But don't assume that just kind of telling a few things is the same thing as doing that full end-to-end. There's a lot to it. So I'd say, understand, per Janine's point, understand what, maybe call it recruitment marketing services or employer branding enablement you're offering. But just like you would with your wider business, understand the market, understand the high street employer brand agencies, understand if it's tactical what you're doing versus, the full story. But maybe you want to do the full story. I talked to a recruitment business in insurance industry. They're charging £40,000 to do a proper employer brand exercise for their clients. Now, they're not selling loads of them, but they're thinking about their market. Insurance, these people are paying that to high, to the big employer brand agencies, what's they're offering at that price point.
I just want to kind of ask one final question as we're wrapping up. We talk about growth, we talk about value, marketing adding that value essentially to an agency. What about the end story? What about exit? How does marketing really affect the value of your agency if you're looking to move out and sell on?
I love this topic. Sorry. So I alluded to it before, is that if your entire business is wrapped up in the founder's brand, the founder's the rainmaker, the founder wins the business and passes it off, you're going to really struggle, because what are they actually buying? You have to think like the end investor, and assuming you're going to want to actually exit, as it says. So if you're too wrapped up in it, you're going to struggle. So thinking about, there's a few stats out there. They're looking for 60% of your database to be engaged. So think about that for a second. So think about what that means is your database bloated just with stuff that you're never going to use, that you're keeping just in case? Are you actually doing marketing automation and regular engagement with your candidates and clients? What's the asset that you're putting together from brand, and actually even thinking about trademarks? And, you don't want to get down the road 3 years, you worked on it for 3 years, you're about to go to market with your business and realize there's a trademark issue with your brand. Yeah. So think early, think deliberately, if you're on a 3 or 5 year plan, and start getting your database in check, start getting your brand in check, obviously the team, the programs, etc.
And your story, right? You need a story to sell a business. So that's the bit you've got to start way out. And who are your client advocates? Who they're going to be talking to, because that's the stuff that you need to be working by the time, as you say, you get 2 to 3 years in front.
Yeah. And then think about your book of business. So your clients are obviously going to be built up over time. Depending on how long you've been trading, you also want to be able to show that future state of that relationship as well. So it's not just about being able to say, yep, we've worked with this client for the last 10 years, 15 years. It's also about looking at the growth of their business and being able to say how intrinsically tied you are with that. So we're looking at also the ability to show less churn, but also market growth and penetration at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what's the point of all this? The point is there's a lot. There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to take away today. But I think all of it, and I'll point back to that. It's October. Let's start getting on our 2026 planning. What does that next 12 months, January to December, look like, and where does marketing fit into that wider picture? Thank you
very much.
Thank you.